Hello, welcome to the Thinking Stack. Today we are going to discuss how to set up a React application using React Router. Along with this, we'll be learning how routing works in our React application using React Router. React Router is a React library that helps us to do routing in our React application. With version 7 of React Router, there are three strategies that got introduced for doing the routing, namely the framework mode, declarative mode, and data mode. In this video, we'll be covering framework mode. The advantages of using framework mode is it is easy to set up. With framework mode, we can compare this React setup with other applications like Next.js. We get plenty of options in terms of API that is provided by the React Router. Let us set up a small application using React Router to understand how framework mode works. We need to run npx command to set up this application with React Router and Tailwind CSS inbuilt. The command looks like npx create React Router @latest. @latest here refers to the latest version of React Router, that would be 7.8. And let's call our application name as routing. So it is copying the template and it is asking whether we should initialize a Git repository. Let's initialize one. And do we want to use npm? Yes, we want to. And it will install all the dependencies required for this setup. Let us go through the setup that was provided by the React Router. So let's start off from the last file, that is veed.config. When we run create React Router command using npx, internally it uses veed to set up the code, base for us. And it has set up Tailwind, React Router, and tsconfig paths. So tsconfig paths is for the TS configuration, React Router is for your routing, and this is for your CSS. It has also included the basic tsconfig file for us. We can go and modify it later whenever we require it. Let's go to the React Router config.ts. In React Router config.ts, we have the configuration to set whether we want to use server-side rendering or single page application. So if we set this to false, single page applications, this application would work as a single page application. Let's leave it as it is now. In packet.json, it has given us some scripts like build, dev, start to basically run our applications on our system, or whenever we are deploying, we can use it for building and serving it. Then the dependencies that we require, that is React, React DOM, and React Router. For React Router to do server-side rendering, we'll need node and serve packages of React Router. And accordingly, we have dev dependencies for Tailwind and your React Router and TypeScript, and also veed, because it has used veed to set up this code base. We are not going to containerize this application, so let's ignore Dockerfile as of now. In public, we'll have the assets that we want to use. So as of now, it has just given us the favicon. Node modules is the folder where all the dependencies get stored. In app is the actual code that we would be running after the build. So let's start off with the root.tsx. Root.tsx is the main file from where this application starts. So it has three main components. One is layout. So layout gives the main structure of your application, the HTML and where the children would load, and some details around meta and links that we want to use, and the scripts that are required by React Router to run. Second is the app. App is basically just returning an outlet. Outlet is the component that helps React Router to perform routing in our application. We have another component as error boundary, which is used whenever we have some errors in our application, specifically when we are trying to access an undefined route in our application. So we would be getting a 404 error in that scenario. And if we just check out the imports, so one is app.css, that is the main CSS file that gets loaded where we have imported the Tailwind CSS. And these are the links for installing some font families that we can use from Google. And this route basically builds the route type that would be used internally by this application. From React Router, this is all the stuff that is being used here in links or meta. So we'll see this reference of meta down the line. Then we have another file as routes. So where we define our routes and we tell which is our main route, as in index refers to the first page that gets loaded whenever this application starts. Then we can define another set of routes here. If we go to this point, routes/home.tsx. So this is the meta. Remember in root.tsx, we had this meta. So whatever we define in here as title and name, these will be inserted as your meta tags in your HTML page. That would help with your SEO. So this is one of the advantages of using server-side rendering. And then this home page basically loads your another component. So we can treat routes as the pages in this application setup. And if you go to the welcome, it has two assets that it would be loading, two images. If we go, so this is logo light. If we see our reports, it is referring to these SVG files and loading those images and some resources that we want to show eventually in our in our page. Now that we have understood what all this setup is, let's see how this looks like. So to run this application, we just need to run this command npm run dev. Let's open Chrome. Let's go to our page, localhost 5173. So this is the application that gets loaded from your welcome component. So this is the image, and these are the logos for React Router and Join Discord, which is being referred from this point, from here. So now, just to show how error boundary works in this, let's modify the URL here. It gives the same error that we would be expecting from the error boundary. So if you just go back to the code in root.tsx, in error boundary, it says message and details. Since it was expecting another page, but we did not have about us page or about page. So it is a route error. Let's create a folder called as components where we can keep all our components. Let's move welcome here and it should import fix. Yes. So if I go, it has fixed my import here. Okay, let's leave it like this. Let's create another folder called as login. In this, we'll have another file called as login.tsx. So from here, we need to export function login. And this basically returns an h1 tag called as login page. Just to demonstrate how routing would work, I'm adding another source here. Okay, we need in this as well, we need another file called as login.tsx. We can copy paste the same code from here. So we can rename this, call it as login page. page to my app. For home page also, I have modified my title and description content. So let's save this as well. Now here, let's modify this to go to login.tsx, and here let's say I want to go to, we need to add route here from routes. So let's call it as home. So this is the URL that we would be giving, and this tells which file to load. So we will be loading routes slash home.tsx. If we save this, let's run this again, npm run dev. Okay, so application is up. So again, since I don't have the about page, it will throw me an error. So let's see what we see on local. So this says this is on login page. Since we just had a h1 tag, so if you go and inspect in body, we'll just find the h1 tag. And if I go to home, it should show me the welcome page. So we are reusing the same component just to avoid some HTML CSS at this point. So let's go and modify this to have another button which we can use to programmatically navigate. So let's use fragment here. H1 tag, say login page, and let's just put up a button here, button. And call it its text as login. On click of this button, let's call a function that would be calling something. So what it should be calling, let's set up const navigate to use navigate from React router. So close the parenthesis. So this is one of the ways which we can use to navigate. Now call navigate and tell it where to move. Let's call it as home. Okay, let's go and try this. So just remove this. So I do see a button. Let's click on this and it navigated. There are many other ways that React Router provides me to do the routing in our application. Every method it provides has a different use case. So just to show the basic routing, I have displayed this. I have set up the basic code like this. In part 2 of this video, I'll use the other ways and explain when to use which method.